The
Thank
rain
you.
was
As
falling
you can see
hard
from my
that
experience,
evening
I believe
when
I'm a
I heard
strong
a
fit for
knock on
this
my
role.
door.
Let me highlight
I
a
had
few
just
key
submitted
points.
my resignation letter 3 days ago. After 12 years of dedicated service at Morrison Tech Solutions, I was done. My name is Elena Hartwell, and I am 42 years old. I had given everything to that company. Late nights, missed family dinners, weekends spent reviewing reports. But somewhere along the way, I forgot why I started. The passion that once drove me had turned into exhaustion. My husband noticed it first. He would find me staring at my laptop at midnight with tears in my eyes. My daughter stopped asking me to attend her school events because she knew the answer. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I typed out my resignation with trembling hands. 2 weeks' notice, professional and courteous. I handed it directly to my CEO, Richard Donovan, a man in his late 50s with silver hair and a reputation for being all business. He read it in silence, looked up at me, and simply nodded. "I understand," he said. That was it. No questions, no attempts to make me stay. I walked out his office, feeling strangely empty. The next few days at work were awkward. Colleagues whispered. Some avoided me. Others asked if I'd found something better. I just smiled and said I needed a change. But that evening when the knock came, I was not expecting anyone. I was in my comfortable clothes, holding a cup of tea, finally feeling some peace. When I opened the door, there stood Richard Donovan, my CEO, in the rain, holding a yellow envelope. "Elena," he said quietly, "may I come in?" I was too shocked to speak. I just stepped aside. He walked into my small living room, water dripping from his coat. "I accepted your resignation," he began, his voice softer than I had ever heard it. "But I cannot accept losing you." I stared at him, confused. He continued, 12 years ago, I hired a young woman who had fire in her eyes. She had ideas, passion, and a belief that technology could make people's lives better. Over the years, I watched that fire dim, and I did nothing. His words hit me like a wave. "I built a company focused on growth and profit," he said, "but I forgot about the people who made it possible. You are not the first person to leave exhausted and burned out, but you might be the last if I do not change things." He handed me the envelope. "This is not a counteroffer," he said. "This is an apology and a promise." Inside was a handwritten letter. In it, he outlined changes he planned to make: flexible working hours, mental health support, mandatory vacation policies, and a complete restructuring of workload expectations. "I spoke to your team after you resigned," he said. "They told me how you stayed late to help them, how you took on extra work so they could go home to their families. They told me you were struggling but never complained. That is not leadership on my part. Elena, that is failure." I felt tears forming. "I am not asking you to come back to the same job," he said. "I am asking you to help me build something better. A company where people like you do not have to choose between their passion and their peace." His sincerity was undeniable. This was not a corporate strategy. This was a man confronting his own mistakes. "Why now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why did it take me leaving for you to see this?" He looked down at his hands. "Because I am 57 years old, and I finally understand what matters. I built an empire, but I have no real relationships. I have money, but no meaning. And when you walked into my office with that resignation letter, I saw myself 30 years ago, full of promise. And I saw what I had become, someone who let that promise die in others." The rain continued to fall outside. We sat in silence for a moment. "I need time," I finally said. "Time to think, to heal, to remember who I am outside of work." He nodded. "Take all the time you need," he said. "But know this, whether you come back or not, I am changing things. You helped me see that." He stood to leave. At the door, He turned back. Thank you, Elena, for your 12 years, for your honesty in leaving, and for reminding me why I started this company in the first place. After he left, I sat with that yellow envelope for hours. I thought about my career, my family, my dreams. 3 weeks later, I did return to Morrison Tech, but not to my old position. I became the Director of Employee Well-Being, a newly created role. Richard kept his promises. The company transformed. People started smiling again. Employees began talking about work-life balance. And slowly, I found my passion returning, not because the work changed completely, but because the purpose did. Sometimes it takes walking away to find your way back. And sometimes it takes losing someone valuable to realize what value truly means. Richard and I built something meaningful together after that. Not just a successful company, but a place where people could thrive. He became a mentor and a friend. And I learned that change is possible when people have the courage to be honest. That rainy evening changed both of our lives. He learned that success without humanity is hollow. And I learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is speak your truth, even if it means walking away from what you have built. We cannot always control what happens in our careers, but we can control how we respond when things go wrong. For me, that resignation was not an ending. It was a beginning, a chance to reclaim my life and help others do the same. And for Richard, it was a wake-up call, a moment that reminded him why he started his journey in the first place. Years later, when people ask me about that night, I tell them this. Real change happens when people choose connection over comfort, when leaders choose to listen instead of defend, and when we have the courage to say what needs to be said, even when our voices shake. That is how we build not just companies, but communities, not just careers, but lives worth living. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more stories of hope and transformation. And leave a comment below telling us about a time when someone showed up for you when you least expected it. We would love to hear your story.